thinking for Heath to expect Smith to reason. The only way for Smith to reason is to use violence. That is violence in the valley. And we are prepared to fight. The Africans, we will do it since the British government has refused to use violence.
And the main reason why the African people, especially the youth, can now resort to violence because they are not allowed a word, not a word in politics. If I say anything against the government, I'll be behind the bars the next day. There are informers in every square mile of the country.
Do you not fear an informer in this group now?
There may be. I don't care. At this moment, I don't care if there is an informer. Maybe tomorrow I will be there behind the bars, and I don't mind. I am prepared to make such sacrifices, and even greater sacrifices for the freedom of the country.
These boys talked to me in May at St. Ignatius College just outside Salisbury. 4 of them are now behind bars. Last month, the school was raided twice. The police came with guns, dogs and tear gas. 23 arrests were made. The police were stoned, a Land Rover was turned over. Today, 18 days after their arrest, no charges have been made against the 4 boys still in custody.
Now we're going to divide a minus 3 into 2a to the power 4 minus 5a cubed minus 10a plus 3. Would you do it for me, please, Wanda?
St. Ignatius College is a secondary school founded by the Jesuits 9 years ago. These boys are aged between 15 and 19. They're among the elite of Rhodesia's young Africans, for only 180 black children reach the 6th form in any year, 1 in every 600. The lack of political opportunity, the difficulty they'll face in getting a job, all these lie at the root of the young Africans' frustration. The school's principal, Father Davis.
The white child emerged from school with similar qualifications. Which would find it the most easy to get a job?
Certainly the white men. And to prove that, some gentlemen from Salisbury, who are obviously supporters of the Smith government, came here and we asked them the same question. Why that white men find it easier to find jobs. And obviously they said, just imagine if you had a brother and you were the manager of some company. If your brother and somebody else came, which one would you pick? And obviously the answer was my brother.
Things are quite bad at the country in the moment, but I think there's a growing tendency among the white children of our age to realize the hardships the African is facing. And I think this is also the case in South Africa. You've only got to consider what's been happening at the South African universities and to realize that the younger generation at any rate is realizing what the African has to put up to. And even though they can't do much about it, they're trying their hardest. Well, I'm speaking from experience because I've had the opportunity to learn with white boys, and admittedly they tended to come from the upper class, but I think they were fairly representative of the young white children in the country. It's only the parents, and this gap between parents and children is widening, but the young white kids are, are trying their hardest anyway to try and lessen the gap.
Do you see hope in this situation?
Yes, I think it's a hopeful sign. I mean, in terms of years, I don't think we can say that conditions will change in 5 years, but I think gradually the voice of the present generation anyway will not be neglected.
Is there ever going to be black majority rule in this country?
Certainly there will be, if we Africans strive long enough. But the trouble is we can't. We're ever suppressed. Each time we try to speak against the government, you might find that you're in trouble within a matter of seconds, which is rather too bad. I mean, they should accept opposition. Since they're in power, they should always accept opposition from anybody.
Do you think they're foolish not to?
Yeah, that's true. That's true enough.
Do you think then that if they do not accept some form of realistic opposition, hearing realistically the African voice, there is bound to be a violent end to all this?
There's bound to be chaos, that's all I can say. Especially if the African is going to be educated enough.
In a way then, it's in the Europeans' best interests not to educate the African.
That's quite true.
One thing that must be made clear to the British government is that the African people in this country are not at all worried about what political ideology they follow. If communism is going to bring them freedom, they will accept that ideology. And for that matter, I can assure you that Western democracy and civilization is really losing popularity in the country.
This, of course, might be termed
So if the British government and the British people still want some friendship with the African people in this country, they must see that they satisfy him by helping to give him freedom. They must force the Smith government.
This, of course, might be said by Mr. Smith to be complete justification for keeping the African nationalists behind bars.
What cause?
What you've just said.
And it is only the only way possible now for us to gain freedom, because all the other ways have failed. Talks have failed. You can't reason with the Smith government.
Is that
They just don't accept to reason. They don't. So why are we going to waste our time talking with them? If they want to talk with us, they have people in the parliament, the chiefs whom they choose. Those people are uneducated, most of them. What do they talk with them? Their speeches are made for them, and they speak what Smith wants. What does that help us? Yet there are many African graduates, many people who know politics, who are being left away from politics.
Do the tribal chiefs speak for you?
Well, it's very difficult for them to, because they are chosen by the government and they're supposed to support it. And moreover, they are paid by the government. If they say anything against it, they won't get anything. So obviously they will be on the side of the government. And I must say they are unpopular among the African.
Does anybody speak for you?
Not really, no.
The Africans' political representation is a curious mixture of ancient and modern. In Rhodesia's upper house, the Senate, sit the chiefs elected by a majority of the tribal elders. They're paid an allowance in order, as the government says, to enhance their prestige in the eyes of their people. In the lower house, 16 of the 66 MPs are elected by the black vote. 8 of them are chosen by these same tribal elders. The other 8 are the only ones directly elected by the registered African vote, which, in a population of 6 million, numbers 8,326. This areas traditionally theirs. For many Africans, to talk of a concept of Western democracy is meaningless. Far more important is the day-to-day struggle for an adequate living. On a practical level, the government are spending thousands of pounds on teaching them modern farming methods. Their Africans, they say, are better off, more literate than in any other part of the continent, except South Africa.
The ingredients are 1 part soybean meal to 1 part maize meal.
And if in this government-sponsored cooking class the terminology is Western, with talk of spoonsful, pounds and ounces, it only underlines the final irony of the situation. Because the more the African becomes educated to Western ways and values, the more he will covet the standard of living and the political freedom that his European neighbour enjoys. The most crucial...
Mr. Heath and company may feel this bunch is just a horde of extremists. I'll give him a practical example. There is a certain degree of tolerance in a chained, tame animal. You may pester it for the first time, and you can do that for as many times as you like. But a time will come when that big chain will snap and the big animal will remove its tail from its hind legs. Then it will start, barking. Then from barking, it will bite.
According to Prime Minister Ian Smith, in his lifetime there will never be majority rule. He could be wrong.